August 8th, 2012, Wednesday. By the time second lunch arrived, most of first team was spent. Miss Waldron had increased their workload and pace. The only one who didn't show signs of brain fatigue was Virtuoso. She was humming along and starting on her homework during mealtime. "You can break for food, you know," Darkspeed said. "No thanks, I had a big first lunch," Virtuoso answered with a grin. "Do you think you could do that thing to my brain that helps you remember and freshens you up?" Olympian asked. "Sure," Virtuoso said. "No," Darkspeed said. "I was thinking about that the other day. Your brain is like a muscle. Using it makes it stronger. If Virtuoso does it for you, you don't get stronger. You get dependent. You, me, and all of us need to do this ourselves," Darkspeed said. "You make it sound like a drug," Olympian said. "Connor's put him in charge and you're supposed to follow orders. Gospel, remember?" she said. No one likes their own words used against them, and Olympian was no different. His face was not happy, but he didn't say anything. He went back for a second plate and continued eating. Connors came in early with his cup of coffee, like always. He sat on the edge of the raised front of the room. "Everyone doing well today?" Connors asked. "Great. Can I ask you a question?" Bileforce said. "Sure. Why do you always drink coffee? Does the caffeine work on you?" Connors made a straight smile. "No, caffeine does not work on me. This stuff was in every police station, HU hall, and outpost I've ever been to. It's one of the things I could always count on to be there. Drinking it makes me feel like things are normal, even when they get a little weird." "I have a question for you," Darkspeed said. "Okay." "I was talking to Saber, and he said his coach was working with him to get ready for the matches coming up next week. Are we having matches next week?" "Yes, you are." "Shouldn't we be getting ready for these matches? During coach time, the other teams are out there practicing as a group. As I said, your heart is more important than getting a head start on fighting. Don't worry, it'll work itself out." "We'll be done eating in a minute, Coach," Olympian said. "Don't worry about it, just take your seat. It'll be like dinner theater. You eat and I'll talk. Teach you a little history." "History? We just had our academics. Omni once said, 'For those who do not covet history, all wisdom will fade and mistakes will repeat without end.' Get it?" "He gets it," Darkspeed said, looking at Olympian. Soon, everyone was in their seats, and Connors stood to start class. "Has anyone ever heard of the HMS Birkenhead?" he asked. No one raised their hands or spoke up. "I didn't think so. No one usually does. It's a small British ship that wrecked in 1852 off the coast of Cape Town, South Africa. She was transporting soldiers and the families of officers, women and children. At 0200 on the 26th of February, the Birkenhead struck a rock formation, only 3 miles from shore. The damage was horrible and caused the lower decks to flood quickly. Over 100 sleeping troops drowned. They never made it out of the lower decks. The captain did all he could to recover the damaged boat. They launched distress rockets and made for shore. They didn't have enough lifeboats and some were unable to launch because of poor maintenance. The soldiers saw sharks in the water, probably because of some of the lower deck soldiers that were washed out. They still had 2 miles to go to shore when the boat was going down. They knew the situation was grim. Normally in a scary life or death situation, it's every man for himself. These were disciplined British soldiers. For the very first time, the words "women and children first" were used on a sinking ship. The captain ordered the soldiers to stand fast and allow the small lifeboats with the women and children on board to leave the ship. The colonel who was in charge of the soldiers was worried that his troops may do something desperate when they finally made their way into the water. Fear of drowning or being eaten by sharks may scare the men into swimming after the boats. The boats were already filled to capacity, and desperate soldiers trying to get on board would surely capsize the lifeboats. So again, he ordered the troops to stand their ground and not leave the ship. The lifeboats with the women and children were well on their way to shore when the Birkenhead went down. Then, each of the soldiers did their best to swim to shore. Of the 640 or so aboard, only 193 were saved. Connors stopped talking and pointed a finger at his alphas. That story was told for generations, and those soldiers were the example in courage and self-sacrifice that people looked to. It was called the Birkenhead Drill, courage under hopeless conditions, self-sacrifice rather than selfishness. Today, none of you had heard that story. It's been lost from our youth. I tell you now, that is the stuff superheroes are made of. Self-sacrifice and courage. We talked about a hero's heart the other day. You could say, sure, that's a cute concept, but what is heart? To talk about heart is one thing, The application of it is easier to see. I know that Miss Waldron has added to your homework, and I don't want to disrupt her education plan for you. So I'll leave you with the better part of this hour to write a report. I don't want you to leave this room. The title of this report is Evidence of Hart. I gave you the first two. You need to come up with the rest. I don't want you to talk amongst yourselves, and I want you to leave it on your desks. Connors walked to the door. Darkspeed, when time is up, dismiss the class. You have healer's specialty tonight. Connors left. Darkspeed and the others walked silently back to their terminals to try and write something. Outside, they heard the clash of the other team's training. After dinner, first team set about doing an increased homework load. Olympian was the most upset by the academic work. Never in my life did I think I would be learning calculus instead of hand-to-hand combat at Alpha, Olympian said. Don't you do that at your specialty class? Midas asked. Yes, but that's only an hour a day. I could do that all day and be happy. Maybe Connors likes punishing you, she said. Ha ha, very funny. No, he knows how to fight and he's teaching us more than I ever learned anywhere else. All the hitters agree on that. But, Midas said, he could teach us more. I mean, we barely see him. We are his team. He should be teaching us. I mean, sometimes it's all I can do to just sit here and study. She listened intently to what Olympian said. Maybe this is a test. What kind of test would this be? Patience? Darkspeed asked. Maybe, or maybe it's just what he said. Our hearts are more important than getting a head start on fighting, Bioforce added. Well, my heart wants to get out there and mix it up with the other hitters, Olympian said. Well, I have to get to the lab with IQ. He's got a prototype of the suit. Armory and Knight have been working on the nano batteries. She spoke as she packed her laptop away. Nano batteries? Midas asked. Yeah, storing electrons one at a time on a lattice of molecules. They hold enormous amounts of energy. It's just short of storing pure energy. That can be tricky. They're making a solid and a flexible version of the batteries. What about your homework? Darkspeed asked. I'm almost done, and I have to be back here by 2200, remember? She slipped out the door and was on her way to the lab.